The work that I've been doing in Haiti has spanned over the last 6 years, starting with my urban design degree at UCLA, and then carrying into my time at Morphosis and the Now Institute, so working both in the professional side and the research arm, and then a recent solo project that I did there. The lecture will have 6 parts. I'll do a little introduction to Haiti, talk about sort of the first version of that from the Now Institute, which is called Haiti Now. Then my time at UCLA, we did a project called Cap-Haitien Now, which led into a built project called the Life Tree. And then when I was teaching with Tom at SciArc, we did a project called the Taino Museum. And then the solo project I did was the Freedom Village. So just a brief introduction to myself. Zach Pauls, I'm an architect. I've been practicing and teaching for a number of years now. I'm from Canada, as 1J mentioned. These are the cities that I've lived in over the years, so a number of places in Canada and the US, and I also spent a year living in Hong Kong. I've done a number of teaching studios, both in Canada and the US, as well as a studio in Belgium and in Germany. This is some of my groups that I've taught over the years. This is one of the studios, or a couple of different studios down in Texas, where we were looking at construction methods. These are some of the projects that I've done around the world as well. One notably that you guys might know of, obviously, is here in Seoul. I was the project architect at Morphosis for the Cologne One and Only Tower, which you may or may not have been over to see. And then, the other projects that I've been working on is in Haiti, which I've been traveling over there over the last 6 years. This will be a brief overview of the sort of Haiti history. Part of this was a huge research project that we started with when I was at UCLA, and so you go from not knowing much about anything to being a mild expert very quickly. So for Western history, Haiti was one of the first places that Columbus landed. He crashed the Santa Maria boat, which is very famous, right, just off the coast of Haiti, and they found a settlement there. So the northern city of Cap-Haitien, which was the capital for a long time, was founded in 1670. And now the major city of Port-au-Prince, which you may have heard of, was founded in 1749. The amazing part about Haiti at that time was that it was the richest colony of the French. It was very bountiful for them. They grew sugar, they grew coffee. All of this was exported back to Europe and made it a very important colony for the French at that time. But in 1791 is when the slaves that they had been brought over from Africa started to revolt, right? They wanted their independence. Nobody wants to be a slave, right? And so by 1804, they were able to kick the French out of Haiti. Over the first 65 years, they had many different leaders, a struggling new republic. It's hard to find agreement, and so there was lots of change, which made things unstable. During that time, they built this amazing castle fort, the Citadel, which they had planned in case the French came back, they would be able to defeat the French again. And so they found all of the old French cannons that were in the bay and created this really amazing piece of architecture up in the mountains. At that time, there was an agreement, so the French were obviously hurt that they had to leave, and so they charged the Haitians 150 million francs, which at today's value would be 21 billion US dollars, because they were free. And so that right from the very beginning of their republic became difficult, because they were having to make these payments to the French for the next 100 years. In the early 1900s, then the U.S. arrived to sort of make the area stable. They've had many different dictators over the years, which again just makes the whole place volatile. And Aristide was the first elected president that they had, and then Prevail in the early 2000s was the first to ever have a full term. So previous to that, the first 150 years, no one ever finished a term, right? And sort of in our democracies, that's way more common, right? But here, just it adds to their instability. And so what brought Haiti to the world stage, where most of us know more recently, right, is the earthquake that happened, which killed many because the buildings were done poorly. They didn't have money to build correctly, right? And a lot of people perished. And so there were huge donations around the world to try to repair things, and it was a lot of wasted money. At that time, then the UN came, which they called MINISTA, which again, another major news item was that they brought cholera, and so after the earthquake where people died, the cholera then started to, cause more people to die, which is spread with bad water, which sort of ties everything together, right? I think in first world nations like Korea and Canada, US, we all get clean water, and it's very easy, right? But here, that's something that is, most people don't get clean water, and it causes a lot of problems. So if you're uncertain about your geography, this is where Haiti is in relation to here, Canada, and to South Korea. It's located in the Caribbean off the coast of Florida, and then here are just some images of what the life, the city in the northern part look like. It's very busy. It's got some traditional French architecture from when they were still there, but then a lot of it, as you can see in the back in the hills, is more makeshift, do-it-yourself structures out of CMU, concrete block. This is the major river in Cap-Haitien in the north. One of the places that we studied, you can see they use it as a garbage dump and as a toilet, right? And so the water is very, very disgusting. And we would see people there cleaning the fish that they were about to eat in the same water, right? And it's a bad situation. A couple more views of the city. A lot of life. Haitian people are very happy, I would say, for the most part, very friendly, a lot of activity, bustling around with these little motorcycles. These are all in the old town here, and you can see it's a very vibrant place. As we'll be talking more about water, this is a lot of the water that people get, which is healthy. It's these little tiny plastic bubbles full of water that they just suck the fresh water out and then throw them away. And so the city that was dirty and full of garbage, you go onto the other side of the mountain, and it's gorgeous Caribbean water, right, with these fishermen. It's a really beautiful place. The nature there is incredible. They just don't have the infrastructure to keep the cities in a place of repair that's what we would consider habitable. Right, so this is the difference from one side of the mountain to the other in this area of Haiti. And then notably with the unstable government, there's constantly riots. Even just this last week, I was requesting one of my friends in Haiti for some photos for a lecture, and he couldn't go and get photos because of the riots. He had to stay at home sort of for fear of his safety. So now just quickly about Haiti Now, a publication. So this was the year before that I went to UCLA. Tom Main and the Now Institute started studying Haiti. A friend of Tom's requested that he looked at it, that it was a difficult problem that he might be interested in. So during that year at UCLA, they did an extensive research project, which ended in this publication. So as it was finishing up, me and my classmates, we were involved in helping put together some of the graphics and writing for the final publication. This is the former Prime Minister of Haiti with her copy, a big supporter down there and someone that connected us to many organizations to try to get some of the work done. And now my first year at UCLA, the Cap-Haitien Now project. Here at UCLA, we had a group of students looking at the one city in the northern part of Haiti, working with the government to try to provide new planning initiatives to improve the quality of the city. Again, so we were talking about Haiti. Here we are in the north. You can see this is that northern city of Cap-Haitien that we were investigating. And so these are again some more images. It's this mix of this classical French architecture. If any of you have traveled to the United States, to New Orleans, it's a lot of the same planning and architecture of New Orleans. And then very quickly it sort of devolves into the sort of typical slum conditions that they have. But you travel a little bit further out and it becomes really picturesque farmland. And then there's the Citadel, which is very close to Cap-Haitien, right, where they have these monumental architecture pieces sort of hidden in the country. And so the relationship here, right, again, we were just looking where Haiti is located, but our studio was in Los Angeles, right, and because we couldn't be there on site, we were, trying to learn about a very complex situation from a far distance, right, which as architects, as architecture students, we currently do, but this one was very difficult to start that from such a distance. So you start, like you always would, with Wikipedia or some search on the internet, right? And you find out just the very basics, the most minimal thing. What is this that I'm looking at, right? But then very quickly you find that you have too much information, and you start to almost drown in information and what it becomes important, and it becomes very difficult. So we utilized a number of techniques to try to collect and organize the different information. One of those pieces was a timeline, just trying to understand the history and the connections of some very difficult subject matter. So on the studio wall, I started this for the group where we had a physical timeline that we could move things around and try to understand the relationships between these pieces. And then that gets refined and gets turned into a digital piece that you can use later, right? That starts to make some of these connections with refinements and editing. And at all this time, you're trying to find out what is the important thing. As I was showing before with all of the data, there's lots of information, and so it becomes an editing exercise on what is important at the time. And so we tried many different techniques to isolate those things that were important. And this would be sort of connected with many presentations, right, as you're trying to articulate those issues to other individuals who comment and provide feedback, right, as you're sort of refining and seeing what is really the collective interest. Again, so as the project develops, and so from those initial, right, we have Haiti quality of life, what they needed there: money, healthcare, literacy, food, shelter, which led to sort of three major projects. One was an urban design project, one was a pod, a really small project, and one was a building sort of scale project. And again, trying to present some of these things. So we would collect data. Again, on the left, that's us trying to organize all those difficult subject matters from the environment, the built environment, social types of things, and how those related to different projects. Again, lots of data, trying to synthesize that down to sort of a nugget or one piece of information that could be shared, because we would research for months and then have to try to synthesize that down into 10 statements that make it clear to you what the real issue is. So these were some of the projects that we were working on. One of them was how to clean up the river, right? So a couple of classmates were looking at the different situations, right? Poor sanitation, right? They're using it as a toilet. Even the healthy mangroves, become so dirty they can't even clean the water anymore, right? It creates unsafe drinking water, which causes health problems, right? All of these things are related. And so these were some of the illustrative images at the end on how to improve or possibly clean up, what the effects would be. And one of the projects I was working on was trying to preserve that old French architecture while still allowing new development, new housing opportunities in the city. So in the studies, it was looking at places where we could build without influencing the current situation. So the number one section was do not allow any more development because builders were destroying the historic nature. And then finding places, you can see the two blue circles at the top, those were on slopes that were shallow enough to build to not cause landslides and make housing that's going to be dangerous. And without designing it for the people, it was trying to establish a plan that could be worked with local partners to find ways for the Haitians to do this themselves, right? So this isn't the design about a perfect square box that's going to solve all the problems, right? But it's the start of a planning initiative that allows the locals to have an organization to grow the city as it moves forward. And then one of the final projects that year some classmates worked on was a health pod. So it was this idea that there wasn't enough places for women with children to go get their child looked after, to get some doctor help, or to get even some bandages or medicine, right? And so it was looking at these really difficult slum situations and finding a way to go in and provide opportunity for them to get better. So in this map, the team mapped all of the places to get safe water in the city as well as healthcare, and made this map at the bottom. And so what we did then, it was the places where it was difficult to get, where there wasn't water or there wasn't health clinics, those were the locations where we wanted to put the pod. So because there's no access to electricity, water, safe water isn't there, these pods were intended to be standalone that would provide their own energy, have their own collect rainwater, right? And then it would be a couple little clinics inside. But this is a school project, a university project. That's where this ends, right? It's more of a collection of ideas. But interestingly, we made some partners after the academic year to try to make this real, right? Where things change. So in between that, at the end of the year, we got some connection with the government to make the second publication to that book, Haiti Now, that I was showing you, right? So a team of us started working on the Cap-Haitien Now books, so synthesizing those projects into something that we could give to the government to allow them to make change. But at the end, there was a big problem in the government, and they closed all the funding, and so the project got to 90% draft, and then it died, so it never got published. So now the fourth project is the Life Tree, so that's what the pod studies turned into, a built project. And so in the middle of Cap-Haitien there, obviously a big problem is water that I've been mentioning before, right? And so the idea was, again, how can we start to create something that's going to provide better, safe, clean water for people so that they can stay healthy. So many families have to walk very far distances with water. I've been there many times seeing little 6 and 7-year-old girls with a huge bucket on their head walking, carrying water kilometers to get water for their family just to drink and cook for the day. There was a pod that was even before that, back in 2013, and that one was more an infrastructure pod. It would collect solar sunlight, and people could charge their cell phones there. There was sort of an internet cafe type of thing. That was the idea in 2013. The 2014 pod became a health pod. But even though health is important, what we learned, the lesson learned, was that water was most important, right? So we started to focus on trying to provide water. So in 2015, the pod looked like the one on the far left. You recognize the logo. We started to partner with Cologne and tried to find a way that we could solve at least a little bit of the problems about water. This was a nice synergy, right? I was working on the Cologne headquarters here in Seoul, and then also working with a different team on Cologne to try to make this tiny little tower in Haiti. So even though this tower was very small, the Cologne headquarters was a big tower and got done way before the little tower. So 2015, right, it keeps changing. There's different interests, different locations cause the project to change. So in 2015, we decided to pair the project water with culture. So it would be a little music school, so people would come to get water and they would stay to learn about music, and so pairing education and water together. And I think during the course of a couple years, we changed the site 6 or 7 times, trying to find the best partner and location, one that had spring clean water that we could work with. And you could see back in 2013 is when we started this project, right? And so this is a picture from last week, 2019. It's still not completed, right? It's still under construction. It's a very difficult situation to try to get projects done in Haiti. So we mapped all of the regions. The blue and pink was the things that were positive, right? Which becomes the white spaces, and then everything else is the ones that needed, places that needed help. So the idea with the pod, right, is that it can be a small insertion. You create something with a lot of power and potential that can go into very small space, right? And so here the idea was if we could get this prototype correct, we could start to place them in many locations and improve the life of more people. But the optimistic views at the beginning of the project, meet reality, and it's very tough to try to achieve that vision, right? So by the time we found the final location, which was in a protected park in Port-au-Prince, this was the design that, working with Tom, that we landed on, right? So it has the water station at the bottom. It has the water tower for the fresh water, which becomes a projection screen for education. And then beside it, the canopy was where the music education would happen. So here's some renderings, right? All of this time we're designing, but also trying to make the project happen, like the logistics of getting all the equipment there. So, I'm working on Cologne with the headquarters with our lighting designer, and they put me in touch with one of the world's leading lighting companies, and they donate really special lights. So the color changing lights, which would change overnight, this would have been the very first tower in the whole world with that special light, right? So some things become great opportunities, but other things become more difficult, right? So this place, we envision it to be a hub, right, that would attract people. They would come for safe water, but also that they would have the opportunity for entertainment, right? They could play the Haitian national soccer games on there, or show videos on how to, use safe drinking water. And all this time, we're working with, engineers as well. There's a team of people, and because this was a humanitarian project, we're getting donations of time, right? The client is the people. They're not paying us, right? And so we're doing this because we believe that it's important to give back to communities, right? And so, we have different engineers. We're working with Thornton Tomasetti, one of the preeminent structural engineers, to try to figure out how to meet the seismic load, right? We knew there was a very major earthquake there only a few years before, right? So we don't want to create any more danger or break this thing due to the earthquake, right? So we got to work and make sure it's done correctly. And so at some point we broke ground, right? And everything, a lot of it's done by hand. It's a small project too, but it was amazing how many people were on site for such a small project over the course of the time, putting in the piping, laying all the rebar. And then when they prefabricated all the steel off site in a little shop, trucked it on site, and then they used Haitian power instead of machines, right, to move all the stuff around, which is pretty incredible. And then they brought the crane in to lift it in the end. So one of the challenges, I think, is a little bit cultural. If you've heard of the term island time, right? So typically it's denoted with like Jamaica island time, right? People taking it easy, and I think there's a lot of that. And there's not the same regimen of, the type of sort of Western or Korean, Asian sort of, you work now from here to here and let's get this done, right? It just, some weeks it would happen, and, then I'd get asked for reports and nothing would happen for months. And what's the reason? Well, I don't know. I would not get any good reports back. So on this project, there was a small PV photovoltaic array, and these were the batteries for it. So there's other problems that occur because the very first day that they put the batteries in, that night they got stolen, right? Because there was something of value in the tower. So those were imported from the US, so then that takes another couple months to get new batteries, right? So it's just many different delays along the way. And so these were a couple of Cologne engineers that I was working with from the Incheon Cologne office. they came, we did a trip to Haiti, and we went and did a bunch of water testing, and so checked the different water sources that the different communities were already using. And here, yeah, my buddy Mr. No here, he did stick his hands into that dirty water to take the water sample. We bought him dinner after, so it's okay. And these are the two water filters that Cologne donated to the project, and so they built them here in Korea and shipped them over. So we only did one water tower at the beginning with one filter, and the other one was sent as a backup or hopefully in the future for the second tower. And the great part about this type of filter is that it's a gravity-fed filter. There's many water stations that I've seen in Haiti that are now closed because they're broken down. They had different types of moving parts that there wasn't somebody there to be able to keep up the maintenance, right? And they would break down. And so with these gravity-fed ones, we just need water at a certain height, which when you turn the tap below, the water pressure just pushes the clean water through the filter. One of the more satisfying parts of the project was trying to give it a greater connection to the city and to the community. So we commissioned a local artist to do these decorative panels in the typical Haitian way. We gave them the idea, as we were saying before, of the life tree, and so this was the artist's interpretation of these panels, these decorative panels that went around the life tree. And so as I was saying, these are pictures from just a couple of weeks ago. So it's still not completed. The fabric cover that we built in Los Angeles and shipped out, still not up. There's grass everywhere. You know, nobody has gotten fresh water yet, which is really sad, right? It's disappointing because you work hard and it's just so difficult to try to get these things done. But, you know, with the objective is so still important, right? To give people a better quality of life, right? And so even though it's not quite there yet, I think the ambition is important, and hopefully it inspires others to try to do these projects and you know, maybe find an easier way to get them done. And so the fifth project here, this was a museum. So during our many trips to Haiti, we've met all kinds of people from around the world. You know, you go and you'll get connected. Someone says, oh, you're doing this project, you should meet these people, and they introduce you to someone else. And so this ended up being this museum that a couple wanted to do, which you'd sort of be surprising in this country. But so I was teaching with Tom at SciArc in Los Angeles, and we did this project, the Taino Museum. So as we were looking before, this is downtown Cap-Haitien, right, where those problems we're having. This is the quality of water and the condition around it. And just over the hill, you can see to the left there is Royal Caribbean Cruise Line dock. When the Royal Caribbean comes here with all their tens of thousands of guests, they don't even tell the guests that they're in Haiti because of the stigma of Haiti, right? They just say they're in a undisclosed island in the Caribbean, in case the tourists are scared, right? But the situation, it's right by these people, these Haitians that are very poor, right, and could use some of that tourism money to improve their life, right? The connection makes sense. And so the project that we did for the museum is just down the coast a little ways. It's a resort that a couple of French people own. So, on the left again is the downtown, right? And this is their beach at the front of their resort. It's a great place. Most of the foreigners that are working for different agencies in Cap-Haitien, this is where they stay, right? So they spend the day working on the left, and then they come home at night to the situation on the right. And this is her current museum. It's an old building that sits on their lot, but she has all of these artifacts, these Taino artifacts. So she pays locals, a little bit of money to go into the mountains and the forests and find things that, look special and bring them back to her for her collection. And so she's been collecting for 40 years. And she has her own private collection, which is the largest Taino collection in the world. This is the site on their property where the museum would be built. And just quickly about the Taino, they were an indigenous tribe that lived in Haiti prior to the Spanish coming. And so there was these types of people that were living indigenously before the Spanish came, and because the Spanish brought their disease, the Taino people were wiped out in a few short decades. So this is their property on the north coast of Haiti. They have a main banquet center, a number of hotel rooms, and then her private museum, which isn't open for the public, it's just for people that she knows. And so as a typical studio project, which maybe many of you have gone through, right, sort of start with the program is one of the things, so studying what needs to happen with museum spaces, archiving, exhibition to get a sense. So this was the existing museum and the amount of space that they were currently using, right? So then working with the students, what would be a minimum version, sort of a medium version, or if they could really afford it, the maximum version of the museum. And then looking at precedents of other small museums around the world to get a sense of if that program reconciliation is correct, how these different elements would need to be viewed, right? And then different styles of open galleries versus formal sequence, hybrids, natural history museum. And then these are just some of the proposals that the students came up with. This was a short 8-week project that we did. In the middle of it, I took the 13 students down to Haiti for a week, and that was very eye-opening for them, right? Many of them had not been in a place like that, and so it was a very good experience, I think, for students to step out of their comfort zone and see that situation. So as many student projects go, right, it's a similar brief, but each student has their own individual taste and styles, right? And so these were some of the proposals that were presented. And so initially this was supposed to become a real project that was designed in the office, but I think that connection with the client sort of faded, and I think there was some health issues with the client, so I don't think the project proceeded, because when I was in Haiti last summer, the site still looked like this. Nothing has changed, nothing has moved, so no project. Now the final project that I want to share with you today was one that I worked on last year. It's called the Freedom Village. And so this project is an orphanage for young girls in Haiti. So some friends of mine told me about this project that was happening, and when I heard it was in Cap-Haitien, which I had been working in over the last number of years, it seemed that I should get involved with this project. So you can see the location. It's very close to where I have been working for a number of years. So there's the historic downtown, which I studied as a student at UCLA, right? And this is just adjacent to that. This is the site looking down at the city. So some background on the clients and the eventual residents in Haiti. There's a system called the Restavek, and what it is these families get very large, 8, 10, 12, 15 kids, right? And they can't afford to feed these kids, so what they end up doing is they will sell or give away their young kids to another family who has more money to use as a housekeeper, but essentially they end up doing all the cooking and cleaning in the home as a slave. So this organization seeks out these typically young girls, young women between the ages of 7 and 14, and frees them from these situations, and they're going to provide an orphanage where they can teach them, send them to school, give them healthy food and their own bed to sleep in. Some of them have been sleeping on the floor. Here you can see there's those example of the little girls who are carrying water back to their home, right? And up the hill, and they have bare feet or sandals. It's pretty amazing to see, and they're laughing the whole way, like they try to make fun, make it a game, right? So the idea is to take these young girls out of really poor living situation, and sort of the big concept was to create like a Garden of Eden, this like beautiful garden that the girls could live in. Again, this is just the site location on the hill. And so the client, initially, he's not a designer, but he had an idea for it. So this was his design, and he took it to his board, and they said, "You're not a designer, sorry, we're not going to build your project." So when I was in Haiti last June, we had sort of a 1-week design charrette. And so looking at the site, these were the quick 3 initial proposals, again with that garden in mind. So the one on the left you can see is very close to what the client liked, right, or had before. It's similar. The second one is these long bars, which has a garden in between, so the units would look into the garden. And then this third one was actually designed to respond to the very steep slope, right? So it became just a very shallow ramp the whole way up, and the units were off of that. So the client that I was working with, the designer of the old design, he took those back to his company, and which one do you think they picked? But I didn't want to design this one. I didn't think this one worked. And so I communicated more and finally was able to convince them, not all the way to I felt the best solution, but a happy medium. And so what the site is on the left portion there, right, is the orphanage complex would be self-contained with units for the girls to sleep, to clean, to cook and have shared meals together. And interestingly, what we developed in the program was that in the future they would build this small guest house hotel. And so the proceeds from the hotel, the profits then would be able to fund the orphanage, right, in its operations. So one of the major difficulties was the extremely steep slope, right? They don't have a lot of the same construction experience and equipment that we have in America as well as Korea, right? So there's sort of 2 approaches on steep slopes, right? This is the typical one on the top, which the family has just developed themselves, right, where they try to hug the slope. And then just nearby, some American developers came in and did the brute force method, right, and tried to just like knock the top of the hill off to build the big hotel. So because of the experience of the builders and the budget that we had, then we wanted the hugging method, right, the one that is close. So here would be the view down to the city with the dormitory rooms for the girls and this garden in between. Right, so each of the units are actually broken up with multiple steps inside, right? They're young girls, they're healthy, this is fine, and we're trying to, adhere to the slope, right? So there'll be a bedroom here which has a number of bunk beds for some girls, and then up some steps or down some steps, depending on where their unit is, and showers and toilets and sinks. And then a little private bedroom for, we call it a house mom, the woman, the older girl that looks after the young girls. So here's the plan, right? So the units nest, right, to try to be as compact as possible. So, even doing, simple things that we do in typical architecture, right, with a shared plumbing wall to make things, try to reduce costs, right? And then you can see the paired sleeping quarters that have access to their own bathrooms. Just another view of that relationship of the bathrooms to the bedrooms, and then something to see how it could look. We'll see. Not a lot of control. I just got pictures. I forgot to include them in here, but they just broke ground last week, so I don't know. Is it ever going to get built? We'll see. They got rid of some trees. So, and one quick thing is possible future work. This is the Samuchka headquarters. It's a group that does music education for kids. So this is my buddy Fenor here, a passionate guy, and he spends all of his extra money trying to fund this project to help teach Haitian kids music, right? So he brings in American and French musicians to come and teach band camp in summer. And they have huge orchestras. They do as much as they can with very little, but he wants to build a full music academy with dormitories and amphitheaters and music. Teach people how to fix instruments, right? So he's worked with other architects in the past and it's never moved forward, but it's this kind of thing that he's gotten work done, right? So I don't know if they've done it for free or if he's paid them a little bit of money, but he's gone through, I think, 3 versions of this, right? Really sort of sad, and this is the amount that they've built so far in the last 10 years, right? It's a little with what they have done themselves. But I think typically us as architects, we want to just be the designers and draw the cool pictures and plans, right? And then hand it off and hope that it happens, right? But in this situation, they need more than just an architect, right? They need an advocate, they need a fundraiser, they need someone to help them get the whole project done, right? And so, I've been talking with Fenor, and hopefully we can find a situation where we can find people who want to invest time, money, materials, right, to get the project done, not just, hire someone or ask someone to make free drawings that, again, will not be realized, right? So before I go to the last slide, I would probably just like to encourage you, if you have the opportunity to, even though this is tough, right, a lot of this work has been free, just on my own time, right, but I would encourage you, I think it is fulfilling, right, to give back to other people, right? So if you have the opportunity, even in a small way, is to use your design skills, your education that you have, right, to help others that need some help.